Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69, and today is July the 6th. And I thought I'd go ahead and make that new video about Boulder. But before I start talking about Boulder, I just want to let y'all know that this has been an awesome, wonderful, amazing day. I can't complain. Who knows, I might make a little short video about it so far. Because everything that's happened to me since the moment I woke up until this very moment, I'm grateful for. Boulder. Boulder, Colorado. Well, let's see. Daryl and I arrived in Boulder on, I believe it was July 9th of 2013. We went up there on a whim because a friend of mine in another traveling group named River sent me two pictures. One picture was of different places that we could sleep without the fear of getting caught. And the second picture was a place of all the resources that was available there in Boulder. I showed Daryl. He's like, let's go. I was like, yep, it's only going to cost us $10. We're on our way. Another thing about Boulder is Daryl had moved from Chicago, Illinois, to Boulder, Colorado in 1993, I believe it was. Yeah, 1993. Got his own little apartment. What else was he doing? Started giving guitar lessons out of his own apartment. He did some other jobs too. I think he did some like temporary gigs through Apple One temporary service. Then he put up flyers at the college. That's what he did. And then his phone started ringing off the hook. He had more than enough money than he needed. So he lived in Boulder from 1993 until I believe it was 2001. August 2001. Him and his first wife moved to Las Vegas about a month before 9/11. So he was already familiar with Boulder as far as like how the town was laid out, where some of the shops were, etc., etc. There was this one place that was a resource center. It was called the Bridge House. That's what it was. They had showers available. They served a breakfast and a lunch. They always made sure you had plenty. They were open 7 days a week. 7 a.m. Everybody started lining up at their door probably about 6 a.m. Because the first 10 people in line, if they all wanted showers, well, you were out of luck if you were the 11th person in line and wanted a shower. They also had computer room upstairs and resource assistance available in helping you to get food stamps, help you get health insurance, help you get an ID, social security card, birth certificate, whatever it is that you might need. They had people there to help you with that as well. So that was the Bridge House. That was pretty much the only real. Well, there was a couple other places. Let me think. There was this other place. It was a church, and they served breakfast, brunch. I think what day it was on. I can't remember what day it was on, but it was one day out of the week. They served like a breakfast brunch type meal, and I think it was called. Potter's house. The Potter's house. Then they had a clothes closet across the street. And I think they called that Jacob's coat or something like that. So they had plenty of resources available within this town of Boulder. As far as places to sleep, well, that was a little bit different story because Boulder basically had laws in place that you couldn't sleep out in public anywhere. So most of the homeless people would hide, try to find places to hide, to sleep. Several of the places that we slept in a pretty couple of decent locations. One was up on top of the bus station roof, very top level, because it was a bus station. It was a huge bus station in Boulder because they had buses coming in and out that were doing local bus runs there in Boulder, and then they had the buses that would do the long distance runs from Boulder to Denver, and Denver coming in to Boulder. Um, so they had a huge parking garage, and it was a 4-story building altogether. They had an elevator, and the bus station closed about, I think it was 11 o'clock at night, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. That security guard. Basically, we would get on that elevator before the bus station closed and go upstairs, and we would get out of the elevator, make a right, and then right around that corner is where we'd set up. And I think we got away with sleeping up there for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. One night, Daryl had to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So instead of going just down from where we were sleeping, he decided to go to the other side, and in the process, he had to cross the elevator area. And when he did, there was a security guard there smoking a cigarette. And he's like, oh. He said something to Daryl, and Daryl's like, I guess I'm leaving. Something like that. And he came around and said, hey, you got to wake up. We got to go. We got to leave. And I looked up, and there was a security guard outside. So that spot was no good anymore to us. Let's see, where's some of the other spots we slept? Out by the library, they had, it's hard to explain, but there's this Boulder Creek that runs through Boulder. I can't remember if the name of the creek is actually called Boulder Creek, but that's what I refer to it as. It was a creek that ran through Boulder up from the mountains. It came down from out of the mountains and down and wound through Boulder. By the library, that's where the creek was. And back behind the library was this huge field, but then there was a lot of tree-lined areas. And there was a couple of, like, places up along the tree lines where there was enough space in between the trees that a couple of people could fit up in there and lay down and not really be seen. So we slept there a few times. We slept underneath a stairwell at I guess it was a condominium apartment type complex that was in the downtown Boulder area. We got away with sleeping there for about 5 weeks. We slept in some other outlining areas. We slept in parks. We slept behind a restaurant one night by their dumpster area, but not in the dumpster area, but by the dumpster area. There was a big bunch of bushes and hedges on one side of the dumpster, but there was enough space in between the dumpster walled area and the hedges that we was able to fit up in there and chill out. Woke up the next morning with the mama deer and a baby deer right next to us. That was like the first couple nights that we landed in Boulder. One night we did attempt to go out west of Boulder to this little town called Netherland. It was up in the mountains. I think it's probably about 7 miles from Boulder up in the mountains. Um, there was a lot of camp spaces in between there, and everybody said, "Oh, y'all ought to hitchhike." We just weren't prepared with what we needed to sleep outside up in the mountains. We would have definitely needed tent, sleeping bags, warm gear, enough gear to keep us supplied up, as far as like water jugs, cook stove, etc., etc. All the things that we wound up getting later on in Oregon, we would have needed there, but we weren't seasoned homeless people yet. We had just hit the skids. We hadn't been homeless very long, and we were just trying to make it through the best we could, you know. Boulder, I think, was just, it was a smaller city than Denver, but they had a little bit better resources. Um, it's hard to explain because Boulder is a pretty decent sized city, but a lot smaller than Denver. Uh, they had a huge park area that a lot of people would hang out in throughout the day. Let me see, what else did we do? A lot of people utilized the library. Library was always a place where you could find homeless people. Everybody getting online, trying to keep in touch with their families, whatnot. Um, let's see. On Saturday mornings, I think it was Saturday mornings, around 11, 12 o'clock, uh, they had this food not bombs that was set up in the park, and they always had fried chicken. They always had these amazing bomb salads of different types of salads. They always had breads, desserts, fruit. They always had some really good food. Then on Saturday night, underneath, where was it? Was it the library? Usually we would do it underneath the library or out in the park by the library. This guy named Benny, um, him and his family and friends every Saturday evening fed at least 100 to 125, 150 homeless people. He didn't preach to us at all, even though he let it be made known that he loved Jesus and that he was doing all this because Jesus told him to. Because God told him to love others, and this was one way he could love others, was by giving back to the community and helping those less fortunate than himself and his family. But he never tried to preach to us about God. He never tried to convert anybody. He just was out there sharing the love with people, giving people the time of day, listening to them, making friendships, etc., etc. He was really doing it the way it should be done, you know. Then on Sundays, usually in between the library and I guess it was down by the court system, you could walk this trail and take you down to another little park area. And on Sundays, they always had a hot dog and hamburger cookout for the homeless people. Less fortunate, whatever. So we always had food covered for us on Saturdays and Sundays. Monday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursdays, and Friday nights, we had meals covered. The only night we didn't have meals covered was on Tuesdays. We were on our own. But that was all right because we had food stamps. And usually with all the food that we collected throughout the week or that we would utilize for snacks or whatever throughout the day, we always had food. We always had food. So we weren't starving because we got to eat at least once a day, every day. So it was no big deal. September rolls around, and I guess September could be a stormy month for Colorado, depending. And they had a storm come through that laid down a whole lot of snow, which then in turn caused something to happen up in the mountains, which turned to rain, and we had a major rainstorm. And then something happened, and the river started flooding, and was coming down from the mountain. A lot of mud, it was like the last time this had happened had been like, I think it was 100 and something years. And Daryl and I was there to witness it. And that specific night, we were hanging out at this place called Colonel Mustard's. Colonel Mustard's Last Stand. It was a hot dog stand. It was right next to the creek that I was telling you about. But they had a covered type walk-in area on the outside. It was covered, and we were just hanging out there and thought we hadn't slept there. So we thought we would just kind of hang out there and see how the night went. It was raining. Next thing you know, we heard this loud sound of rushing water. And the bridge wasn't too far from us. So Daryl took a little walk over on the bridge and looked down, and he seen all this water. And he seen the water rising, but it wasn't rising too fast. It wasn't like it was going to whisk him off the bridge or anything. But he immediately came back to me. He goes, we got to go. We got to get out of here. He goes, this water's going to rise. In probably a couple hours, this place is going to be underwater. So we got up out of the rain, got up, packed up our gear as best we could with what we had on us. I think we had a cart. And we started pushing it up the hill towards the college. We wound up staying up there on the hill in a little like shopping center with a few other few other handfuls of homeless people. There was a pizza joint there. There was a laundry facility there. I'm trying to think what else was there. A couple other little places, but a couple other little businesses. There was a Starbucks across the street, a college, maybe a couple other like fast food places. Anyway, we make it up there. We find us a little spot on the sidewalk amongst all the other homeless people that had already decided to come up that way. That pizza place was open pretty late at night. And I know when they were going to go to close, one of the girls came out and said, "Here, y'all want some pizza? We're giving out all the pizzas we have left over because we're getting ready to close." And they normally just go in the garbage, but we figured as many people sitting out here, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be hungry. So here, y'all want some pizza? So me and Daryl got a pizza. I think we shared it with somebody else that was close to us. The next day, everybody was still hanging out. Me and Daryl had moved up in front of the pizza place by then. They had some benches, and Daryl and I claimed one. I think we stayed up there for 2 or 3 days, and then people from down in Boulder were coming up telling us, "Hey, everything's opened up now. Oh my God, the YMCA is opened up, and they're opening up a shelter. So we ought to go, blah, blah, blah." So basically, all the homeless people made their way to this YMCA. And we were going to get housed up. And we did. We got housed up, fed, access to showers 24/7, access to their swimming pool, access to all their facilities for like 3 days. Then I think after all that happened, it was about 5 days later, we were leaving. But within that 5 day span after we left the YMCA, there was a kind church that opened up their doors and opened up their huge porch and basically let a few of us homeless people sleep on their porch as long as we left the porch in good, outstanding condition. They had a couple of garbage cans on each end of the porch. They had a porta potty in the back of their parking lot. That access to water, and a safe space to sleep. And every morning, all of us took it upon ourselves to change the trash can, clean up our garbage, etc., etc. That was one of the churches that offered, I think, 2 dinners out of the week was at that church. We stayed there for about 5 days, and we had already made arrangements to get the heck out of Boulder. And our next stop was going to be Las Vegas, and we got a ride with a guy named George, and I think his car was what kind of car was that? I'll have to think about what kind of car it was. A Mercedes Benz. But it was a Mercedes Benz traveling kind of car. It wasn't a Mercedes Benz wagon or something. It was really, really nice. And we got a ride and got picked up in Denver, so we had to go back to Denver. And then we got picked up in Denver by this guy named George, and he drove us all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, and for $75. That's for the next video. Start out what it was like traveling to Vegas, as well as what we did in Vegas. Peace, love, hugs and nugs, and until the next time, I'm out.